Welcome to the Echo Sportscast.
I'm Dave Dale.
And I'm Paul McLean. And with us today is Nipissing women's basketball coach, Rachel Van Woezik.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Rachel, how are you? Welcome to the Sportscast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm doing well today.
That's great. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you became the head coach of Nipissing University basketball.
That's a big question.
Yeah.
So, I actually started in North Bay as a student. I'm from the Ottawa area, a little town called Almont. And I did my undergrad and master's here in the physical education program and then Master's of Science in Kinesiology. Had a pretty turbulent playing career during that time, so I tore my ACL twice, which resulted in a lot of time on the sideline. And I actually sort of realized that I'm maybe more interested in team dynamics and like how to think the game than playing it. So that sort of led me into a coaching role during my master's. I was an assistant coach, was very young at the time. But after graduating that, it was COVID. I sort of migrated back to the Ottawa area for 2 seasons, coached at Carleton as an assistant there, while doing some provincial team stuff and regional team things. And then this job came up. So truthfully, I just applied and ended up back here.
And here we are today. So, yeah, I definitely asked a lot in that one question, for sure. So, and probably could have started and backed it up a little bit. I mean, you were a player for Nipissing. This podcast is around NDA sports and sports that are locally. So this is great to be able to talk to you and ask about your playing career, how you sought out Nipissing as a place to play, and then ultimately ended up entering the coaching ranks. So what was it about North Bay that originally drew you to come here?
So what's funny is I went even further north to Sudbury for 1 year. Mm-hmm. I went to Laurentian University there and redshirted. And to add to my injury story, I actually partially tore my Achilles when I was there. But after a season, it really wasn't the right fit for me. And funny enough, going into my second year of school, the head coach, Mark Jones, had just been hired and the basketball team was starting at Nipissing University. And I knew Marg from my time in Ottawa. That's where she was for several years, coaching at Ottawa University and a lot of youth stuff in the Ottawa area. So I don't know how she caught wind of this, but she actually texted me saying, I heard you're looking for a place to play. And I was there. Yep. Next thing you know it. So it's funny, North Bay was always this place that I would drive through, but we would just be on the highway. So we'd pass lower residence at Nipissing.
Yep.
And I remember being like, what is that place? Like, it looks so small and kind of
because it's kind of hidden up on the hill until you get up there.
And then when we actually went to campus for the first time, I was like, wow, it's really nice up here. Yeah.
Better than that rock Sudbury is.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then obviously, so you were here as a part of the first class of players, and then to come back and be the third coach in the program. What has all of your experience along the way come and brought to what you're doing as a coach and how you influence the players?
Oh, my goodness. I'll start by saying I don't know that there's another place I could have been a head coach at the age I got hired at. Like, I was 26 when I took the job, which made me probably the youngest head coach in the history of U Sports, truthfully. But I felt so well supported because I walked back in the building and it's literally the same athletic staff. Like, Vito's still there, Doc is still there,
Rob's still there.
So that was very comforting, and I knew the resources we had access to, people from the community, the Spartans basketball program, so that was all very helpful. But really, I always wanted to have this thing of leaving somewhere better than I found it. And when I was a student athlete, I don't know that I did leave a program better than I found it. We still weren't a winning team at that time. Our culture was a little bit mangled, probably. So coming back here now, I feel like I'm on a bit of a mission to try to get things right and try to get this to be the program that at least I always envisioned and my teammates envisioned at that time. So it's a pretty special experience, and my values definitely align with that of the university and our athletic department. So, yeah.
Well, and it definitely would be nice, like you said, to come back and have so many of those key people in place, plus the benefit of being a student and knowing so many of the faculty
Helps with recruiting too.
Helps with recruiting. Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
So what were some of your first big recruiting, wins?
Oh, man. Well, so the first year that I got hired, it was announced on May 6th. I remember that because it's Mark Berner's birthday. And truthfully, there was no time to recruit. So I went to tournaments and stuff that were happening in the summer, trying to pull like a Hail Mary, getting some like 6'5" kid here.
Yeah.
Nothing worked out. By that time, everyone was like, where's Nipissing? I'm going to North Idaho. Like,
Yeah.
So the first year we actually had a very senior team. We graduated 9 players. And we got really lucky. There was somebody named Crystal Osborne on campus who was a college student at Canada Orange. She had actually played 4 years at UNB. So we convinced Crystal to play.
Yeah.
to do kind of like a victory lap at Nipissing and play. That really bought us a season when I had more time to recruit. And then I was on the road a lot. I'm sure Lindsay would have probably mentioned different tournaments and stuff over the first season, trying to get as many quality basketball players as we could on our roster, knowing that we were graduating so many. And I will say the first probably big wins for us, I mean, Dominique Bouchard from Timmins, but she was playing at Redmond Academy in the Toronto area. That was really big to get things going. She was our first. And then the 2 biggest recruits from that year were 2 girls from Lowell and Prep in Sudbury, Taryn Gauthier, who's now our starting point guard, and Javea Hope, who's coming back from an ACL injury right now. And they will definitely be central in the program moving forward. We worked hard to get them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in full disclosure, my wife Lindsay is your assistant coach.
Yes, she is.
And so I get to know a lot about everything that goes on and see it firsthand. And it really is a tremendous amount of work that goes into it. Being that this is a podcast, sort of focused on the NDA and local sports, you mentioned Lowell and Prep. So that's kind of the most northern basketball academy program, and so sort of the highest level of high school basketball being played in the province. Am I correct on that?
That's right.
So what would you say to what are some of the things that somebody who is playing basketball, taking it seriously and wants to one day play at U Sports, what just really basically what should they be focusing on? What are you looking for in a player? How do they get on your radar?
Yeah. I mean, we're looking for a lot.
Yeah.
We do really value having strong student athletes and people in our program. So I know everybody says that, but I would say that Lindsay and I spend a lot of time getting to know our recruits, both before they come up to visit and when they're here. I think it's a little bit different from how most schools do it. We spend pretty much the whole weekend with a recruit when they come here, get to know their family, kind of their story, to know that they would be a good fit. So having the right people in the room is number one. You need talent, of course.
Yep.
So truthfully, I mean, I'm going to say what every other coach says and say you need to work really hard. But the bigger thing to that is actually you need to know what hard work means and how it relates to how other people work hard. So I might think I'm working really hard, but then I meet you and your warm-up is my entire workout. And you know what I mean?
Right.
So the best advice I would give to somebody, especially locally, is you need to find a way to get into a gym with people that are better than you. And that's not just athletes. That might be taking a trip to Sudbury and going to a Llewellyn practice, or going to some summer development programming there through Ontario basketball. But it might also be doing a workout with a trainer in town, or this isn't meant to be a plug for our program, but we're trying to start year-round offerings sort of that are grassroots programming for young females in North Bay that want to play basketball. But making sure that you are exposing yourself to different opportunities and not just doing one or two things where you're the best player all the time.
Right.
It's not going to help you in the end.
Are you trying to say that being the best player in the NDA doesn't necessarily qualify you for university?
Well, it certainly can.
Depends on that year's
on that year's class and stuff like that, for sure. What I've noticed in the past couple of years, which I think is good and bad, with this OSBA league, which is what Llewellyn is in, a lot of young girls are starting to bill it similar to how they would for like junior hockey or something and moving down to Southern Ontario. So Llewellyn really seems to be the one hotbed left of basketball players. That said, we have 2 local girls on our team right now. One that went to West Ferris, Cameron Walker, and one that went to Schollard, Caitlin DeCook. We call her Cookie. And they're just phenomenal athletes. And Cookie has now worked her way from being like end of the bench into a 4th-year captain and starter on our team. So it's totally possible. And again, that's why we tried to get to know people. Right away with Cookie, we could see that she was an athlete, a really great person, and understood like doing the work long term to get to her reward. So that's
it's a
huge.
5-year sort of project in university.
It really is, yeah. And you may be like the top dog coming in, but most first years in most programs honestly don't play a ton of minutes. So you've got to be in it for the long run.
Well, at that age, the difference between an athlete of 4 years development is huge. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It really is like a grade 12 playing against a fairly grown woman by the end of it.
Well, we've had some local players that did play for the Lakers that struggled a little bit, right? Even in their 2nd and 3rd year. It's a tough league.
It really is. Yeah.
How was your record last year, and how's the team look this year?
Okay, I'll start by, let me go back to 2 years ago. You know what? That makeshift team we had 2 years ago ended up being our best team in program history. So we had 6 wins that season. Last season, we won 3 games. We were 3-19. It was a pretty dark year for us, to be honest. So we started out pretty optimistic. Like we had a great rookie class, but I underestimated how young that made us. And it truly was a group of grade 12 girls playing against grown women for most of the year. And what really didn't help that is one of those top recruits, Javea Hope, and our starting point guard at the time, Nicole Budd, tore their ACL within the first 3 weeks of our preseason. So
The injury curse.
yeah, that hurt for sure. So it was frustrating, and I learned a lot from that season, to be honest. But it really prepared some of our younger players for this year. So
What did you learn?
What didn't I learn?
what didn't I learn? Really learned, I think, to manage people and expectations more. I think our players learned, like our first years had to step up and play because of that. With Nicole down, Taryn really got a chance to shine as a starting point guard, and she now actually remains our starting point guard. We're going to play her like 35 minutes a game, and Nicole will play the 2 now for us in her return. Also, to embrace the chaos as a coach. Like, I think when I started, I was very naive. I still am. And I thought that it was about trying to like mitigate or get rid of as much chaos as possible. And I'm realizing now that unexpected things are going to happen all the time.
Chaos is fuel.
Yes, chaos is fuel. So how do we manage those things? How do I manage my expectations and be realistic with a season? But fortunately, I think that this has prepared us for what is likely to be the best season we've had so far this year. We've played 4 preseason games. They've gone pretty well. And we're getting excited.
Do you have any sports psychology students on the team?
Ooh, so we actually have a master's student right now, Sophie Milner. She's from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, and she's doing her master's with Dr. Mark Bruner in the kinesiology program, focusing on some sports psych and actually coaching maltreatment, positive relationships, stuff like that. So that's pretty cool.
Well, it's a big topic. Within the last 10 years, you hear more and more people talking about the psychological the battles and how to mitigate them and how to make yourself more resilient.
Yeah.
And as a coach, like, looking at how does that shape how you look at your players now versus maybe how you were coached or how, coaching was 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's funny. I still remember that was one of my interview questions about how coaching has evolved over time. And I think a big part of it is that the athlete has evolved over time. So even in my experience, which I don't think was that long ago, my players would tell me otherwise now, it was very much like, yes, coach, do whatever is said.
Yeah.
A lot of yelling, maybe throwing some stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
And now I find it's very relationship based. Now I'm probably like on the far wing of that side just with my age and experience right now. But I do think coaching is pushing in that direction. And as I see more and more young females being hired in our league, I think more coaches are becoming like that. But athletes do really want to feel that they're cared for, understand why for everything. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Like, we'll be explaining his own defense and I'll get like, oh, well, why do we do this? Why do we rotate that way?
Yeah.
Why do I want to front her in the post? Like, which you just have to accept and meet them where they're at and explain it to them. Then they'll remember.
I don't know if this still happens from my coaching experience of the girls in hockey is you're up there, you're explaining a drill or you're in the dressing room giving the, pregame speech, which now, I mean, you can attest to this, like 90 seconds. Like you really have to keep that thing tight to keep their attention. But the amount of, and you're still talking and you're just watching the hand go up or this hand go up. You're like, okay, can I finish? And then can I say it? But like you said, they want to know.
Yes.
And
TikTok era too.
Yeah.
Short attention span.
The short attention span is pretty great. And I mean, even in my limited time of coaching with the girls too, like one of the things that I liked, I mean, I think we've talked about this, that with maybe different slants on the pregame speech.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think I'm becoming more like you, Paul.
Well, I'm realizing though, so I was just to say like huge coach for my daughter 2 years ago, kind of thrust into a role that I wasn't expecting. A bunch of amazing assistant coaches who let me do that. And, were very great at never letting me know in front of the other players maybe where I was failing. But it turned out to be a great experience. But I love the pregame speeches and I love the sort of theatrics of it. And so, but I did realize that time frame, so kind of dialed it back, and you really have that limited attention that you can work with them on. So.
Yeah, it's true. Well, so my philosophy used to be, if I'm doing a whole bunch of talking pregame, I don't feel like I've prepared them up to that point. But now I've actually been given the feedback by the athletes. There are some teams, I won't name them, but we just can't stand as a program. Like, absolutely can't stand them. So that's when I'll bring out the theatrics of like why this is a big deal, why we want to beat them. And I think it's more that like we could be motivational and stuff in those moments. But
fire them up.
Oh yeah. You have to.
Is there any real reason why you can't have a successful year this year?
I can't think of a reason. Yeah, we have what we need.
Yeah. When's it start?
October 25th, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we're at the tail end of our preseason right now. We have one more preseason game next Thursday in Oshawa. And then we open against TMU on October 25th and then U of T on the 26th right after at home. So if you're around, feel free to come by.
Oh, yeah.
I think TMU probably will be one of the best teams in the country this year. So it'll be a tall test for us on night one, but I think we're up for it.
Well, the men's hockey team just had to face McGill and Three Rivers back to back, and Zach Roy stood on his head for them, kept them in the game. It was really kind of cool. It gave them all you need is a couple players to really step it up.
Absolutely.
Even if you lose, you see the potential of the team. Right? That's a big way to start, and maybe manage the expectations.
maybe, yeah.
So I guess maybe. In sort of wrapping things up, but wondering, the women's basketball is kind of at a all-time high of exposure.
Yes.
What are you seeing coming? How is that affecting the grassroots, and then ultimately, like what you're seeing and participation rates, and then tie that into maybe what you and Lindsay are doing as a coaching staff along. Like, what are you guys doing differently, and how are you embracing the growth of women's basketball?
Well, it is a great time to be a women's basketball coach, women's basketball fan. Obviously, Caitlin Clark has made the world explode a little bit, and the WNBA right now, and women's college basketball in the States. Truthfully, I never know if I'm just biased or crazy, but we ran what we called an all-star academy this season. It was just in the spring. I think it was 8 weeks. And we had it open for girls of any skill level or age to come in and sort of like try basketball for the first time. And I thought we would be lucky if we got like 10 registrants. And it exploded a little bit. We had almost 30 girls at it with not much runway to promote. And it was awesome. And girls just want to play basketball, which is pretty cool. And I can't help but think that that's part of all of that. But I mean, certainly Lindsay, myself, Rick, and Steph, our entire staff, realized that the community is where our strength is. Like, we want people in the stands at our game. We would love to have local players on our team later on. There's no reason why that can't happen. But we have to extend our arm to make that happen. So whether it's visiting schools, refereeing tournaments, trying to coach local teams. So we've had a few Spartans teams reach out that would like some of our girls to be around. We love doing that stuff. The girls actually always really enjoy it. And just sort of trying to grow the game has been a big deal for us. Basketball is a relatively inexpensive sport to play. You really just need a pair of shoes to play it. So it's a good grassroots level sport. But certainly we're trying to ride the wave of the popularity right now.
Injuries. I know you went through quite a few of them. And I was only at a couple of the local games, and I could see players playing with braces on and just getting them and re-injuring. I just want to be that kind of journalist right now, but do you see any sort of procedural rules or anything that help the players not get injured or to come back when they're ready?
You know what? So I'm actually quite glad that you asked that. I think that's the missing piece of one of my answers earlier when you asked for advice for young players. What we're noticing more and more of, and I don't know if it's because of like increased screen time and lack of movement or lack of just like free play, but a lot of girls are tearing their ACL right now. So I don't know if you mean knee brace or ankle brace or what, but so we have like 5 girls who have torn their ACL on our team. I tore mine. I came back too soon, tore it again. But honestly, I think the number of girls that can just move well in their late teens seems to be decreasing, which I believe is leading to injury. And I don't know what the reason is for that, but advice I would definitely give to a young athlete is, I mean, when we're recruiting, we just love someone that's athletic that we think we can mold. But also for longevity of your sport career, whether it's recreationally at the university level, you need to learn fundamental movement skills. And that can be as simple as like jumping, hopping, skipping, stopping, running properly. And I really think that a lack of fundamental movement skills really increases risk of injury. So it's not shocking to me that with so many girls unable to move well and properly, that injury seems to be rising. So as a young athlete, I would recommend seeing a strength and conditioning coach or like going to some sort of trainer that just teaches you to move well at a young age. Because once you build poor habits, you can't really get rid of them. It's really difficult. And same for great habits. You'll sustain them over time. But yeah.
I have a bit of a theory on it as well.
All right.
And I don't have any basis of knowing. I watched a podcast. Nutritionally, there's ways to eat so that you can strengthen your soft tissues, cartilage, and tendons.
Right.
And there's things to avoid as far as inflammation. And I think diet has a lot to do with it. I don't want to fat shame or anything, but the 2 girls that I saw wearing braces were heavy set.
Right.
And I think it's important that we really highlight that for athletes to keep their, and parents to, if they think they're growing athletes, to start very early on nutrition.
Right.
For strength and just having good solid tendons and stuff like that.
Absolutely. We actually met with a consultant not long ago about that, and it's interesting with females too. I don't want to get too sciencey or weird or anything, but just hormones and the hormonal imbalance and what that can do to our ligaments and stuff like that. So timing our eating properly, eating different things at different times.
There's a science to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still not well educated on it, but certainly the more fit, healthy, and ready to move that athletes come in, the longer their career usually is. But there seems to be an ACL epidemic right now.
Well, that's a hard injury.
It is. It's common and it lasts a long time. So,
I definitely see that too. I think from coaching or even just my own daughters, like I think how important recovery is. The kids are probably training more now than they ever did, but maybe having less just casual play. And then the other time is like spent driving in the car to and from the different places they're getting to. I can think of my kids coming in, throwing the bag down, just wanting to grab something quick to eat or check in on their phone to see what their friends are doing, you know, and it's like, okay, we got to unpack your gear. You got to go have a shower. What are you doing to wind down? Those are just added things that maybe as parents who are busy driving our kids around can forget the importance of that because we've spent so much time helping prepare them and get them ready for the other stuff. But
and sleep. Sleep is huge. I will say, I mean, on the theme of advice for young athletes, of course I push this high performance basketball thing at a young age, but I would say our top recruit right now, you met her last season. She didn't start playing basketball until I think like grade 10. She was a lacrosse player before. So multi-sport, like just athletic, we can certainly mold that later on.
Yeah, anything hand-eye really
Absolutely.
helps.
Yeah.
And I think it helps too in that case. We're talking about somebody who has a professional athlete as a father.
I have a call with her later today.
I think that's a massive thing too that I'm seeing in all sports, like any time where the parents have had success and have a greater understanding of what it goes to, which goes back to your whole point of like getting out there and finding out how big the pond is, or maybe finding out like, oh, actually, no one's actually finding people in ponds. You have to go to a lake, and I've been dominating in a pond here. So, you know, I think that helps. And if you're, you know, not, you know, I will count myself in the group of people who are not professional athletes. So anything you can learn as that parent, I think, to help. So don't be afraid to ask questions and be open that maybe the information you got last week isn't. Get some new information and sort of compare the two of them together and see where you land. But,
well, I'm looking forward to your first game. Was it 25th, you said?
You got it.
Right on. And I encourage everybody to, check out the Lakers. They have really good professional programs up there. A lot of good sports teams, very smart people running them. It was very good meeting you.
It was very nice to meet you too. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm going to go up there and do some video and
there we go.
Of the game and see if I can get some highlights.
Well, thank you so much for coming in, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future. And I forget how I'm supposed to end these interviews.
Well, what I'd like to say is that check out Kojiko. They're going to start in a week or so using our Sportscast podcast interviews. Okay. We just have to craft it for them, get a little bit more out there. If you have any ideas for people that we should look at as interview opportunities, please send them to editor@northbayecho.ca. That's me. And sign up for the newsletter so you're current on what we're doing during the week. And like, share, and comment, because I think we're doing a really good thing here with the Sportscast, putting a spotlight on local sports, people that are making local sports available.
Yeah.
Right on.
Fantastic.
So welcome. So thank you. That's all right. Keep that.
Yeah. I'm Paul McLean.
And I'm Dave Dale.